Volleyball is a sport played with 6 people on each side of a women's 7'4" net and a men's 7'11" net. In this game, you play with the ball and each team gets 3 touches to get the ball over the net and inbounds. Rules to receive the ball as the other team sends the ball over. To receive a ball, it's called to bump or pass it up to the setter, who then sets the ball up to the hitter, who then hits it, or more commonly known name, spikes it over. Of course, each play doesn't always go like this, but that's the goal. To win the match, your team must win 2 out of 3 sets or 3 out of 5 sets. 3 sets is usually for people on JV team or younger, and 5 sets is for people on varsity and older. Each set goes to 25 win by 2. So if the score was 25-24, then the play will continue until one team wins by 2. Also, if the game does go into a 5th set, the set will only go to 15 points. There are a lot of different positions in volleyball. I'm going to start off with the hitters. On the right side of the net is your right side hitter. It's also commonly called the opposite hitter or the weak side hitter. This position is usually played by a lefty. The next hitter is called the middle blocker. They are most likely the tallest person on the court and they hit from the middle. This position gets the most blocked, which is when you stop a spike ball from being hit over the net. The other hitter is the outside hitter. They hit from the left side of the net and are also called the strong side hitter. The last hitter is the pipe hitter. This is an uncommon hitter in lower leagues because it's not needed, but they hit from the back row. There is a certain position that sets the ball up to the hitters called the setter. All they do is either tip the ball over the net or set the ball up to one of the hitters. Setters are very skilled and have to know the game very well. They have to know what hitter to set when and what type of set and when to tip it. The back row is split between 3 different players. The libero DS, either another DS or an all-around player, which is a player who plays front row and back row, unlike most players who get subbed out when they rotate to a certain spot. A DS or defensive specialist. They specialize in receiving and passing the ball up to the setter. The other position is the libero. If you ever wondered why one person's wearing a different colored jersey, that's the libero. They specialize in receiving too, but they're the best on the team at it. They're also the people who you see get the diving saves and will not let the ball touch the ground. Liberos are not allowed to rotate into the front row. They will always get subbed out. That's part of the reason why they wear different colored jerseys so the ref can see them. There are a lot of little rules in the sport that if you get caught, the point will go to the opposing team. One is you can't touch the net. If you do, the point will be given to the other team. But you can play the ball off the net as long as you don't touch it. Another rule about the net is you can't reach over it. It's called a reach. One last rule about the net is you can't step underneath it. Another fault that can give the team the point is something called a double. That's when the setter, or just a person who's setting the ball, hands don't reach the ball at the same time. It's hard to spot and very subtle, but the refs or you can tell by the spin of the ball. If it's not spinning, it's probably not a double. If it has a weird spin on it, it's probably a double. But recently, on February 24th, this rule has been taken out of the NCAA, or college volleyball. Another rule with the double is that you can't touch the ball twice in a row. One other fault is called a lift. A lift is when a player has contact with the ball for too long and is basically lifting it up. One other rule is the 10-foot line rule. The rule is, if you are in back row, you can't go over that line and then jump, but you can jump over it. If you leave the ground from behind the line, then you can land over the line and it's legal. This usually comes in play with setters, as if you're doing a 5-on rotation, which means you have 1 setter and 5 other people, then your setter will eventually have to be in back row and then run up to the front row to set. Yes, they might be in the front row now, but the real position is in the back row, so if they accidentally jump when setting or tipping, it's illegal and the point will be given to the other team. This is pretty simple. There are out-of-bounds lines on the court. If someone from one team hits the ball over the net and it lands out of bounds and no one touched it, it's the other team's point. But if someone touches it on the opposing team and it goes out, it's called a touch and it's the team who hit its point. This usually happens when a player hits the ball and someone tries to block it, but it just scrapes their fingers and the ball lands out of bounds. Then it's the team who hit its point because it touched the blocker's fingers. Volleyball is a little bit different than other sports. In volleyball, you can play the ball outside of the out-of-bounds lines, and you can cross that line in general. I really hope I achieve my goal of going D1 and maybe even becoming a pro in the sport one day. The position that I hope to play is middle blocker. Hope you learn a lot about volleyball, and maybe it inspires you to give it a try.